My name is Esther Nwachukwu, and these are the top stories. Presidential Electoral Petition Committee admits Shettima's voluntary resignation letter as senatorial candidate. Kano Anti-Graft Commission begins probe of Ganduje. Uproar in House of Representatives over sitting arrangement office allocation. Lagos Ndibo's trial begins today. Panic as gunmen attack residents, traders in Southeast. Details now. The world news begins with the Presidential Election Petition Court today admitted in evidence a certified true copy of Kashim Shettima's voluntary resignation letter as the candidate of the All Progressives Congress APC for Borno Central Senatorial District. The letter, dated July 6, 2022, was tendered among other documents presented by the lawyer to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Vice President Kashim Shettima Wole Olanipekun at the opening of their defense in the petition by Peter Obi and the Labour Party. Now, the petitioners are challenging the competence of the joint ticket of Tinubu and Shettima, claiming that Shettima had double nomination. The letter is intended to prove that the vice president, that is Kashim Shettima, as well as his principal, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, resigned his senatorial candidacy before his selection as a vice presidential candidate of the All Progressive Congress. Also, the details preceding this moment is concerning the evidence that was tendered at the Petition Electoral Tribunal Commission today. We'll have a conversation on that with Barrister Eze Eluche, who is a public affairs analyst, a legal practitioner, as well as a social commentator. Barrister Eze, good afternoon and welcome to the World News right here in VOP 90.3 FM.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me on spot your studio. All
right, Barrister. So apparently there's a new development today concerning the Petition Electoral Tribunal. The case is already there. Apparently today an evidence was admitted, a certified true copy of Kashim Shettima's voluntary resignation letter as the candidate of the All Progressives Congress for Borno Central Senatorial District. The letter was dated July 6, 2022, and it was tendered among other documents by the lawyer to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Vice President Kashim Shettima at the opening of their defense today in the petition by Peter Obi and the Labour Party. Now, we do know that the petitioners are challenging the competence of the joint ticket of Tinubu and Shettima, claiming that Shettima had double nomination. Now, apparently, it's the evidence tendered at the Electoral Tribunal today indicates that Shettima actually resigned from his senatorial position before he took over to contest as a deputy, the running mate to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. If this was the case at the time, or the rancor was on, then the fact that he had a double nomination, why wasn't that mentioned before now? Could this be that with the evidence provided, could it be that something was inflated or something was done quickly based on the fact that that could be a serious problem for the duo?
Well, the people should realize that when a court admits a document in evidence, that does not mean that everything that is in that document is acceptable to the court.
Okay.
It's just that the court has accepted to receive that document as one of the items it will be looking at in arriving at a decision. So accepting or admitting a document in evidence is not really a big deal. It's just that it becomes one of the things that the court will look at. The court will still look at it, determine whether it will accept it at face value or inquire further into it. For instance, if Mr. Shettima has claims he's resigned from the position of senatorial candidate by the 6th of that date, and it happens that evidence can be adduced that he was campaigning, his posters were still out, he was doing other things, that will impugn the veracity of that document. So there's nothing has gone amiss or gone wrong right now. It's just that the court will now look into that matter, look into that document, as it will look into several other documents that have been tendered.
Okay. So it's not really a big deal that the document was admitted. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever.
It makes no difference. It's just that this is, like I said earlier, this is one of the things the court will be looking at, and it will look at several other things. So if there is fact, if there is proof that at the 6th of at the date it was so written that Mr. Tinubu had not actually decided to make him the vice presidential candidate, that could be an evidence that that letter was backdated.
Wow.
So a lot of things can still occur. This is just that the court has accepted it, yes.
All right, okay, Barrister, I would still like you to keep you online because of this recent development where there was a panic, on Tuesday where masked gunmen attacked some residents and traders in Ebonyi State, southeast Nigeria. Now, there was a video clip that circulated which has now gone viral where the attackers, numbering about 9, were seen shooting and chasing traders at a market in Isheke, a community in Abakaliki, the state capital. Now, the gunmen were said to be enforcing the controversial 1-week sit-at-home declared by a faction of the outlawed indigenous people of Biafra. The hoodlums, dressed in red attire and patrolling in a light brown Sienna vehicle, were also seen setting some tricycles ablaze and destroying goods in the market. Motorcycle riders and traders in the market were seen scampering for safety, abandoning their motorcycles and wares. In another clip which circulated on various WhatsApp groups, a child apparently abandoned by her mother was seen seated on the ground in another section in the market while the gunman shot in the air near her. I would also like us to listen to, an audio of the situation that transpired yesterday in Ebonyi State where these men who wore, red and a red, would I call it a cape, and then they masked their faces, where they brazenly and boldly said until Nnamdi Kanu is released, the seat at home must be observed. I would like us to actually take a listen to that, Barrister, before you respond to the situation in the southeast.
July 2023.
Perhaps it's good that the audio is not working and you don't ventilate that to your listeners at home. Are you with me?
I don't want anything to
yes. Good. I said perhaps it's good because you'll indirectly. Thank you very much. Like I said, it was good that you didn't even ventilate the madness those young men were doing by airing their views on your radio. The reality is this. I can assure you, if you go to that same area where that incident was recorded, 2 or 3 communities away from there, their life will be going on as good as normal. So these are just sporadic criminals who are sporadically attacking some communities, and they are trying to use the issue of Nnamdi Kanu to propagate themselves. Like where in Enugu, if you have friends, call them, ask them. There was movement even on Monday. So these young men are just criminals, ad hoc criminals, who are trying to ride on the pedestal of the detention of Nnamdi Kanu to go about perpetrating mayhem. But what we should understand from this is the reason why there should be a decentralized police force. We cannot continue to have a police headquartered in Abuja and then having to police the whole country. If there was a police force in that local government area, if there was community policing, if there was a village police, will those rascal elements dare do what they are doing? They cannot do it. But you have policemen, maybe they are waiting for a signal from Abakaliki, which is the headquarters or the state capital, to move in and dislodge such criminal elements. This is the more reason why every community, every local government should have its own police, not an Abuja-based police force. And that Once you have that kind of local policing, rascal elements, just like those four young 8 men you call them, who were covering their faces, they don't even have the guts. They don't have the guts to show their faces. That shows you how cowardly they are, and they are just merely using the guise of the nation of Nnamdi Kanu to do whatever they are doing. But like I keep on saying, you ask the right question. Will Igbos or Igbos who say they're claiming to fight for Igbo emancipation be going about destroying Igbo products or Igbo market wares? The answer, the commonsensical answer, is no. And we have had Asai Dokubo come out on national TV to tell us that his men are working in the southeast. He mentioned Igbo, Imo, Anambra, and Ebonyi. Who is sure if it is not some Asai Dokubo's men who are covering their faces to perpetrate mayhem in these areas, and then just try to malign the Igbos by claiming that it was part of Nnamdi Kanu's team. Nnamdi Kanu's IPOB, for instance, have distanced themselves from the sit-at-home order. So people should stop using this criminality to adjudge or to link it with the genuine quest for self-determination and self-actualization by any group, not even the Igbos. Those are criminals, and if there was a local police, they should have dealt with them effectively. The reason why they were able to do that and record that video is because we still have a police force with headquarters in Abuja trying to police the whole country. It does not work that way.
All right, Barrister. So here is the situation. The concept of having a police force whereby the order must come from Abuja before the needful is done when it comes to giving security allocation, when it comes to taking immediate action, the whole protocol, the waste of time in protocol and processing, and by that time houses may have been razed, people would have died, the community may have become unstable and possibly deserted. How quick do you think this current administration should work on that? One would have expected that the terrain will be different this time around if the president said that he will kick the ground running as soon as he assumed office.
When he was still in the position, Bola Ahmed Tinubu was a proponent of state policing. He was a proponent of decentralization of government. He was a proponent of restructuring and renegotiating Nigeria. But now that he has become president and perhaps he's enjoying the largest of office, he's enjoying all the powers, he may keep quiet. But we should all realize that the only way we can maintain sanity in this country is by decentralizing authority, decentralizing policing, decentralize everything. If, for instance, those 8 boys, if they had entered into a community which had a community police, once a stranger element enters into a community, the community will know and they will be ready. That is what happens wherever you have community and state policing. Mm-hmm. But because we don't have a police based in Abakaliki or based in Abuja, criminals can go about and do whatever they're doing and nothing will happen. So under the interim period of this administration, there is not much hope that Mr. Tinubu will do what he's been clamoring for all his years in politics. Because for now, he enjoys the prerogative to order somebody in Abuja to arrest somebody in Sokoto, to detain somebody in Calabar, which is what the current situation allows when you have a centralized police.
All right.
But if there was no such centralized police, the president cannot order the arrest of anybody anywhere. You need to get permission from the local council police.
All right, so Barrister Eze Eluche, which brings us back to the cases at the Election Petition Tribunal, which of course is contesting the eligibility of, the INEC affirming President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as the winner of the just concluded elections. I'm sure yesterday you heard what transpired at the Election Petition Tribunal, where INEC only, brought in one witness, who was the deputy director of the ICT, Pastor Lawrence Bayode. And he was asked questions as to, the viability or the results on the IRF portal that were blurry, that turned out to be blurry. And he said that regardless of how blurry that was, the authentication of the physical paper, the images that were clear in the physical paper were enough to make whatever collation that needed to be collated and for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to eventually be affirmed. We have a systematic problem. There's a systematic problem in every institution in the country, from the electoral institution to the security institution to even the manufacturing and even at the federal level, utilized by somebody to take advantage of the system. with this particular outcome, do we see insecurity becoming something that this current administration will take seriously to curb?
Well, there is nothing wrong with Nigerian institutions. The fact is that once the fish rots from the head, once people perceive that the head of an institution is corrupt, there will be corruption all the way down because there will be no accountability, there will be no consequences for corruption. So that is what you see playing out in the security arena, in the INEC, in all institutions of state. We have the best laws. We even have the ones there is perception that at the very head you have somebody who is corrupt, the entire system will be corrupt. Now, in this instance, where we have a president who is perceived to have gotten to office, they are not so pure means, they are even corrupt means. It is difficult to see such a president begin to fight corruption or begin to make things right. So, in this current era, there is actually no hope. Honestly, that's being very, very practical. Because of the manner in which Mr. President himself got into office, there is no hope that he will try to remove the corruption that put him in office. So we'll just have to brace ourselves for a continuation of the very, very sad episodes and period Nigeria is going through. Until we get things right, until we perceive that the very person at the very top is clean and devoid of corruption, corruption will still be having a winning upper hand in Nigerians' affairs. Unfortunately so, but that's the reality.
Okay, so of Ajao Estate, Lagos, so he's a Frederick Nwajagu for alleged terrorism. Now, the trial judge, Justice Yetunde Adesoyan, adjourned the matter following the absence of Nwajagu's counsel. Now, Nwajagu is 67 years. He was arrested in April by the Department of State Services over an alleged threat to invite members of the indigenous people of Biafra IPOB to Lagos to secure the property of Igbos in the state. He was arraigned on May 9 on a 9-count charge, one of them bordering on terrorism. At the hearing in the matter yesterday, the prosecution counsel announced his presence, but there was no legal representative for the defendant. When asked by the court about his counsel, Nwajagu said he was surprised about the absence, stating that the lawyer promised to be in court alongside his junior. So the first question I want to ask you is this man's case ought to have been pending till now? I mean, if there was no evidence beyond what he said, we've heard almost similar scenarios or worse scenarios that have occurred, in the country since that time till now. We've not seen the DSS give an expedited action in whatever proceeding. Now, today he was meant to be represented at the court. His lawyer was not there. No information was given. So why do we have this kind of system when it comes to prosecuting individuals if you allege that they have committed treasonable felonies?
Well, what is being alleged here is terrorism, but
Yes.
everybody knew what this man was alleged to have done. At an event, he said he will call in IPOB operatives to come in to help Igbos in Lagos. Now, the DSS, in my estimation, should be ashamed of itself for even not prosecute that man. When people like MC Oluomo, people like Asari Dokubo, who threatened genocide against the people, are walking about the street, are even being escorted by security agencies. And what the DSS is prosecuting is a man who said, I will invite a group, an amorphous organization into Lagos. He didn't even invite anybody. He just merely opined, stated that he will invite. And that is the person that DSS is prosecuting, wasting the time and funds of this country to prosecute. When you have such glaring injustice, just such glaring double standard, one begins to question the genuineness, the authenticity of purpose of even those who are manning these agencies. Do they operate different systems? Are there different laws for those who try to prop up the Igbo race or culture, and a different law for those who try to castigate or even kill or commit genocide against the Igbo? So the DSS, in our estimation, should be ashamed of itself for continuing this prosecution when there are people better uses of DSS time and money. I mean, I won't even comment further on that prosecution because I think it's a waste of time, waste of public funds. The man who is being prosecuted claims to be an Ezendibo, but we know that all these Ezendibo titles are self-aggrandizement. He really has no constituency. So why bother with him? Why don't you go after those who have thugs like MC Luomo, or those who have armed gangs like Asari Dokubo, who have shown guns, brandished weapons that they want to kill? DSS is going after somebody who just said, I will invite IPOB. Shame on them.
All right. Okay. So finally, before I let you go, Barrister Ezeluche, I really appreciate you taking your time for this. Now, some House of Representative members in Abuja yesterday protested the alleged discrimination in the allocation of seats and offices for the members. The lawmakers, numbering about 100, openly protested against the perceived tendencies. They said the ugly trend was capable of causing setbacks in legislative activities. Now, of course, our station gathered that the House Committee on Welfare, chaired by Representative Olawale Raji, representing APC Lagos, was saddled with allocating seats for members. The protesting lawmakers were mostly first-timers who described the seats allocated to them as one of the temporary chambers as unconducive as they were on the third floor. Also, some of them protested the allocation of offices to the members. According to the list issued by the Welfare Committee, 240 members were allotted for the second floor, while a few members, including some first-timers, were allocated seats on the ground floor. Now, this development, which was responded to by the Speaker of the House, Tajuddin Abbas, called for calm while assuring that the main chamber, which is currently undergoing renovation, would be completed before the House resumed from recess. The House has actually so is supposed to commence, and we're seeing them, tussling and hobbling about where to sit, where not to sit. I don't want to sit on the top floor or the ground floor. It's not conducive. There seems to be bias going on. Is this basically what our representatives are about to do, or they ought to have kicked the ground running in implementing policies or making laws that will move this country forward? We have a lot of problems to deal with.
Well, what is going on in the House and the Senate is not unexpected. The House is supposed to be the legislature, the National Assembly is supposed to be an independent arm of government.
Okay.
But we know what happened to this current 10th Assembly. Before they even start for the very first time, Mr. Tinubu, the acting president now, made clear that he wanted Akpabio to be the Senate president and Mr. Abbas to be the Speaker. He even made clear what he wanted as majority leader, minority leader. He had already people whom he had targeted for these offices. What does that tell you? That tells you that the members of the House are not the ones that elected their principal officers. And that automatically gives room for friction and crisis. I don't know, at this rate, with crisis already brewing in the first week of the National Assembly session, I don't know how long it will be that both Akpabio and Mr. Abbas will last as Senate President and then Speaker of the House of Reps, because they are in for very, very turbulent times. When you already have over 200 members of the House protesting against you in the first week, over sitting arrangements, if for goodness sake they had been part of their choice as speaker, they will take even worse from such a speaker than when they are feeling that they are being taken for a ride by somebody who was imposed over them. So I don't see much happening, good things happening from this current National Assembly until when they are allowed to make their choice as to who will lead them and be their principal and presiding officers. So the earlier they go back to the drawing board and select who they want, the better. If they continue on this path, I wouldn't be surprised if one of these days gunshots are had in the National Assembly.
All right, Barrister Ezeluche, I do appreciate you for your input on the World News at 12 and for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My pleasure always. Have a nice day.
All right, on stories outside the shores of Nigeria, we have accusations coming from MPs where a predatory culture still exists around the House of Commons, with inappropriate that abuses of power by male MPs and senior staffers remain common, and a new complaint process was too slow. One woman said she was asked to sit on a male MP's knee and she was bombarded with text messages by another person. A House of Commons spokesman said it took complaints extremely seriously. The spokesman said bullying, harassment, and sexual misconduct had no place in Parliament, adding that commitment was being ensured and a lasting cultural change was meant to be achieved. It comes after damning allegations have been made about the behavior of MPs in recent months, with several MPs being suspended. The parliamentary staff who spoke said despite the new complaint scheme, little has changed. All the allegations made